Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're out here with the rabbits today. And after numerous requests, I am going to attempt to talk about rabbit color genetics. Okay, I'm going to break this up into, I think, 5 different videos, maybe 4, where pretty much every video I'm going to talk about a slightly different gene, because rabbit genetics are really complicated. Because they basically have 5 genes that control what they're going to look like when they're born. Okay? Now remember, all mammals, whether you are a dog or a rabbit or a horse or a human, inherit genes from their parents. So very simplistically, we inherit 1 copy of each gene from our mom and 1 copy of each gene from our dad. Okay, that makes sense, right? 1 from each. For each gene that we've got, you inherit 1 from each. So, rabbits are no exception to this rule. Now, the color may not matter to you. Let's be honest, not everybody cares. So if you don't care about rabbit colors, probably skip this video and the next few videos over the next couple weeks that are rabbit videos. Because if you breed for strictly meat, you probably don't care what color your rabbits are. If you breed strictly for pets, or all you're interested in is buying a pet rabbit, you probably don't care. Hi, Wildfire. So you might not care at all, and that's okay. And before we talk about the actual genes, we should talk about the terms genotype and phenotype. Because a genotype is what the rabbit is genetically. Okay? What genes does that rabbit carry? That's important. But in the show world, we care more about phenotype. That's what the rabbit looks like. So even though your rabbit might genetically be a caster, okay? Genetically, he might be a caster. He could look like a red, because a poorly marked caster might appear red. So in the show world, we care what they look like. But if you are breeding, we care what they actually are. And the reason we care what they actually are is because when you're breeding, the genes they throw will determine the color of the babies. Okay? So, that being said, I also wanted to mention that colors get really, really complicated, mostly because depending on the breed, the colors change. Not the way they express, but what they're called. So that is a caster, okay? That is Rowan. He is a caster. However, you don't call him a caster if that color turns up in other breeds sometimes. He's actually an agouti. That's the genetic component that makes him appear this way, that makes the colors on each hair kind of form these bands. Okay, there's bands of color that gives a caster their coloring. You probably see it better on Falcon here because he's closer to the edge of the fence. But each individual hair on this guy, okay, each individual hair has bands of color. So he is a caster. But it's an agouti gene. We just call it caster and rexes because, you know, they're rexes and we're fancy. But these are agoutis, okay? We just call them casters in rabbits. So, it is really important that you realize that if you are dealing in a different breed, the color might change what it's called, but that doesn't change the genetics, okay? The color genetics basically work the same. So, today we are only going to talk about what is called the agouti signaling gene. Like I said, rabbits have 5 basic genes that control what color they are, okay? And we usually label these as A, B, C, D, and E. The A is the agouti signaling gene. So like all other genes, most other genes I'm going to say, not all, but like most other genes, the agouti gene has, the agouti signaling gene specifically, has dominance and recessive components. So I was looking for, the reason I came over here was I was looking for Deli. I can't see her, she's in the hole. But we'll talk about her anyway. Because that Agouti signaling gene controls whether your rabbit expresses like him, okay, so like an Agouti, or whether your rabbit is one solid color, like the rabbit I can't see right now, Deli. Deli is solid black, okay, she doesn't have a mark of anything on her. Every hair on her is solid black, right from the root to the tip. So, the Agouti signaling gene determines that. So think of genes as having two alleles, because they do mostly. Some have three. But as having two alleles, for simplicity's sake. If the allele is represented by letters, then a capital letter represents a dominant allele or a dominant gene, and a lowercase letter represents a recessive gene. Okay. When we're talking the Agouti signaling gene, we use A to represent it. Remember, we're going to have A, B, C, D, and E. Today we're only talking about the A, the Agouti signaling gene. So we're going to use A's to represent it. This guy, okay, this is Falcon. He is the papa of these two. So this guy has two copies of the big A, okay? The reason we know that is because of the colors he threw. However, unless you've bred your rabbit, you don't actually know if he has two copies of the big A, the Agouti gene, or one. Because that big A is the Agouti color. Okay, Agouti is dominant. So his shading, the way he is shaded and the way he is shaded, is dominant. Okay? So that's good. However, when you're talking that particular Agouti gene, okay, so that's the first gene. So the Agouti gene is a dominant gene. If they carry one copy of that gene, they are Agouti. In this case, Castor, because they're Rexes. If they carry 0 copies of that Agouti gene, they are self or solid color. So that would be Deli, and I'm going to see if she's come out yet. I don't think she has. I do not think she has. I think I just saw someone who was black disappear down the hole. Was that her? Probably. Let's just go and see. I think we've got an otter over here. Okay, so no, that was her who just went down the hole. So she is a solid black. You've seen her on video before. But she is solid black. No white underbelly, no tan markings. She is solid black. That means Deli has 2 little A's. Okay? This guy has 2 big A's. But this guy will have 1 big A and 1 little A, because he's their son. Okay? And we know he has 2 big A's. How do we know that? Because you can't necessarily tell the difference. Okay, first of all, because if you have 1 gene of each, there's a good chance you're going to end up like Possum there in the doorway. Okay? If you get 1 copy of each, you can have some funky colors happening. You could end up like Possum, who's technically a tan, or you could end up like Madam here. This is Silverado. Okay? So because he has 2 dominant copies, and they didn't have any solid babies, by the way. There were no solid color babies in any of the 3 litters that Deli and Falcon produced this year. That's how we know he is a double dominant. Okay? He is a homozygous dominant. He carries 2 copies of that A. Because if he carried a little A, then at some point he would have thrown that little A into the babies, and that little A would have hit the little A's that Deli produces, and she only throws little A's because she is homozygous recessive. Self or solid coloring is entirely recessive. Okay? So we know that he's throwing all dominant genes and no recessives because we ended up with no solid colored babies. So he's not throwing any recessives. He's throwing all dominant agouti genes. So the agouti gene, you're either agouti, castor, and erex. You are tan, like him. So tan is weird. Tan is like you have a light belly and a light nose, and you have more solid hair, so the color kind of ends up split, right? So some of the color goes to your tips, and then the rest of the color's on your body. It kind of ends up broken up. So instead of having color bands like he has, you end up with a solid color with like your nose and maybe your ears and your belly a different color. So basically splits up the color instead of all on one hair. It breaks it up. Okay? That's what happens when you inherit, sometimes, when you inherit one dominant gene and one baby gene, one recessive gene. So big A, little a can result in that. Can also result in an agouti that is maybe not perfect. So he's double dominant. That one there is one dominant, one recessive. And Deli, who still has not come out. Deli has not come out yet. She is double recessive, homozygous recessive. She's in the hole. Okay, she's in the hole hanging out. So that particular gene can be a little bit complicated, but it totally controls whether your rabbit has all this ticking and can look like pretty fancy like the agouti. Some people don't like the agouti gene. I love it. So that agouti gene controls whether your rabbit is solid or not. Okay? That's why solids are a little more rare, because they require two recessive genes. You throw an agouti in there and you end up either with an agouti rabbit or a tan. Okay? You cannot get, so we will never get a solid color rabbit from breeding falcon to Deli. It's not going to happen. It's not genetically possible. However, if we breed Rowan here to his mama, he will throw half of the time, roughly, he will throw half of that time, he will throw his recessive gene that he got from his mom, and it will mix with her recessive genes, and a full half of the babies will be solid color. So even if you are starting to breed your rabbits and you have only one self or solid color rabbit in your herd, it is possible through selective breeding, through carefully keeping track of who was bred to who, to breed them until you have the appropriate color that you were after. So we only have the one solid. Hi. What are we doing? Hanging out and you're in a hole? Hi. I'm kind of being stalked. There's a turkey in that shed right now. Don't ask. Anyway. So even if you have only one solid colored rabbit, we only have Deli. In here, she's our only solid. But because we know for sure that she is solid, she obviously looks solid. If they look solid, they are solid. So we know for sure she has two recessive genes. We can, through selective breeding, get more solid color rabbits without having to buy more. Okay, we just have to breed her back, called line breeding, to her son. Either one of her sons, really. I haven't quite decided. I'm leaning towards possum just because I like his colors. Thank you! But genetically, it doesn't matter for this particular gene. It matters for the other genes because he's inherited different ones than he has. But for the agouti signaling gene, it doesn't matter which boy I use because they both carry identical signaling genes. Because we've got a homozygous dominant with a homozygous recessive over there. So it actually doesn't matter. I will end up with solid colored babies next year. Just by default, doesn't matter as long as I don't use only falcon. As long as I use these two gentlemen, I will get some solid color babies. Because line breeding is one of the reasons why you do line breeding, is so that you can enhance genetics. And those are the genes I want. So one of these two dudes. Anyway, the agouti gene is complicated. The expressions are weird. You can end up with tan-colored rabbits. You can end up with agoutis. You can end up with selfs. Remember that you can't get rid of the genes, really. Like, he's got the genes he's got, and there's nothing you can do about that. If you don't like the genes he's got or the colors he throws, don't breed him. Because that's just the way it is. If you don't want agoutis in your herd, do not buy an agouti or a tan rabbit. Because once agouti gets into your colors, it's really difficult to get it out. Because it's very dominant. And it shows up constantly. But if you like agouti, like I do, I love the agouti. I love how it expresses. I love the personality of the color. Not the rabbit's personality. The way that color kind of moves over their body. And it's so unique in each rabbit. Even though these guys are both agouti, they're both quite distinct. So I love the agouti, but if you don't love it, don't introduce it to your herd. Because it's very, very dominant. You only have two choices here. Agouti or no agouti. If you want no agouti, look for self rabbits. Okay? Solid colored. Self-colored rabbits, solid colored rabbits are the same thing. So look for a solid colored rabbit. One that does not have any agouti markings. You can also look for a broken. We'll talk more about patterns later. Probably next week. But, yeah, no, not next week. Week after. Whatever, doesn't matter. But yes. So hopefully this video made sense. Rabbit genetics are really complicated. And I know I did the horse genetics, but actually horse genetics are actually easier. Horse genetics are easier to understand than rabbit genetics when it comes to color expression. Because rabbits get real wonky. They have 5 genes that control the color. So we will come back next week and talk about the base colors of rabbits. Because that's actually pretty simple. Even though it can express like crazy, the basics of the base color genetics are actually really easy. Anyway, that's about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. We'll see you tomorrow.